Are we on? Are we live?
So, folks, before we go live, if we could avoid the middle aisle here for the moment and go that way if you need to leave, if you have to the rooms. Just try to exit from the side.
I put your mic on whoever's, if anyone's doing that.
Going to get started. I want to welcome everyone. Wish you all a Chag Sameach. Those who are joining us here in this beautiful third floor space, this chapel, and for those who are joining us from wherever you are through the live stream, as we not only celebrate Shavuot, but we also celebrate you, Rabbi Witkovsky, and get to learn with you this evening as we prepare ourselves to stand again at Sinai. Just to set the stage, I want to share a little Torah for you, Rabbi, before I turn it over to you. This morning in our Parsha class, we studied a verse from Parshat Bamidbar. Ve'elo toldot Aharon u'Moshe b'yom diber Adonai et Moshe b'Har Sinai. This is the line of Aaron and Moses at the time that God spoke with Moses at Mount Sinai. Ve'ela shmot b'nei Aharon habechor Nadav ve'avihu Elazar ve'itamar, and then it just ends. And of course, the glaring textual problem here is, why does the Torah, after saying that this is the line of Aaron and Moses, simply stop with Aaron and says nothing about the line of the descendants of Moshe? Now, there's a great deal to say about the progeny of Moshe, why they don't succeed him, why they essentially disappear from the historical record. This evening, as we celebrate our rabbi, our friend, our teacher, I want to offer one thought. In this case, the Torah is teaching us that ours is not a tradition that believes greatness is automatically inherited. There are roles, for sure, like the priesthood, the kahuna, that are the product of birthright, but when it comes to leadership, when it comes to Talmud Torah, when it comes to accessing the richness, the spiritual depths of our tradition, of navigating this sea of Talmud, this sea of tradition, well, that's open to all. And that is why the Torah was given in the vastness, in the openness of wilderness, because it is wide open for the taking. All adults and children stood at Sinai. We all experienced revelation. But here's the thing. Yes, this precious gift is open to all, but there needs to be someone to teach us, to lead us, and to guide us. And that, Rabbi Witkovsky, has been you. You are many things: a husband, a father, a friend, an ultimate Frisbee player, a pastor, a bartender. You are very loud in the office, all right? You are an extraordinarily talented rabbi, but at your core, I believe, you are a teacher who absolutely loves teaching Torah to anyone at any time. And when so many people in this community think about the person who led them through this tradition, the person they will think of is you. On a personal note, if I had a nickel for every time I knocked on Ethan's door and said, "Ethan, do you have a text for fill in the blank of anything I'm teaching?" and you instantly located the perfect text to teach, I would have enough nickels to think about retirement, Ethan. Which is why I'm just going to read your text sheet tonight. Yeah? Rabbi Witkovsky, your Torah runs deep. It has left a profound impact on this community, the way water will make an impact on a stone, to use a rabbinic image that you know well. We are all a little greater in Torah learning because of you, and we are all grateful for, well, Ethan, just for you. Philadelphia has no idea what is coming their way. I invite you to be our teacher on this eve of Shavuot.
Rabbi, thank you very, very much. It is true. When I log in to teach a Zoom class in my office, it's usually when the other rabbis decide they have to step out for 45 minutes or so. I guess I'm loud. Earlier today, my son and I were playing in the building, and he saw them setting stuff up and said, "What's this for?" And I said, "Well, there's Shavuot, there's a holiday, and you know they're honoring someone tonight." And he said, "Who?" And I said, "Well, who do you think they're honoring?" He said, I said, "I think they're going to honor me tonight, your Abba." And he said, "I think they're going to honor God." So I said, "Okay. So in honor of the Lord and this community, let's learn some Torah." So I did made a few copies of a source sheet, but you don't need it to follow along. We're going to read things, and it's going to be more about a discussion, but I didn't want you to think that there weren't also words on pieces of paper, because that's how our people learn. So tonight is the night where we celebrate the giving of the Torah. And the Torah, which was given on Sinai and which we use as the basis of so much that we do. It's the basis of our learning, it's the basis of services, it's the basis of the way we live our lives. And it's incredibly important. And at the same time, the rabbis continually sort of point to things that might be more important than the Torah. So the question I want to talk about tonight for a little bit is what that is and what it looks like. So if you look at the top of the page, and I'll read it for us, and if you're joining us via the live stream, and you can find Pirkei Avot, the chapters of the fathers, chapter 4, Mishnah 13, it will be there. So Rabbi Judah said, "Be careful in study, for an error in study counts as deliberate sin." We can talk about what that means. Be careful in study, for an error in study counts as a deliberate sin. Rabbi Shimon says, there are 3 crowns: the crown of Torah, the crown of priesthood, and the crown of royalty. But the crown of a good name supersedes them all. So let's talk for a moment about what these 3 crowns are. What's the crown of Torah? Knowledge. Thank you, doctor. I think I heard in the back. I'm just going to say doctor for all of you, but I'm pretty sure that one happens to be. Okay, knowledge. Torah, knowledge of dentistry, just knowledge of anything. No? Okay. You think it's just Torah that gets you this crown? Morality, maybe? Okay, great. Then we've got the crown of priesthood. Rabbi, you talked about that. That means what? The priesthood is something one's born into. So perhaps we'll only mean that. The priesthood were also the people who were of service to the Jews, right? They did avodah in the temple. So I want to go ahead and think that perhaps the crown of kahuna is that of being of service to others. And then there's the crown of royalty, of malchut. What's that? Any thoughts, any guesses while we're still in our preliminary? We're warming up, we're stretching here. This is okay, we're going to get more to it. Yes, doctor. Leadership. Okay. So it could be whether we're actually talking about kingly leadership or not. We're talking about some kind of leadership. So we have, no, I can't do this. So we have knowledge, we have service, and we have leadership. Those are these three crowns, but above all of those is the crown of a good name. So the question that I want you to ask yourself, if you're joining us via the live stream or if you're here, turn to the person next to you. We have to get at least one of these in tonight. Turn to the person next to you. Next to you. If you don't know them, introduce yourselves. Hi, I'm Shavuot. My name is Ethan. It's nice to meet you. And then the question is, what does it mean, this Keter Shem Tov, this crown of a good name, that it is greater than being known as someone, a crown of service, of Torah, or of leadership? What is this good name, and what does it look like? Those are the two questions that I have. What is this good name? What does it look like? You're going to try to come up with this, and then we're going to talk. We got a little bit of time tonight. Take like 54 seconds, okay? Take a little time. Turn to the person next to you. What is it? What does it mean to have a crown of a good name? Ready? Go. All right, take another 18 seconds. All right. So, am I on? Okay. That was great. That was great, guys. By the way, the rabbis say that actually the voice of God is heard in the murmuring of people while they're studying Torah. So this is really, that was wonderful. So who's got some ideas? And I will, for the sake of our friends joining us via live stream, I will repeat it with my mic'd and loud voice. But who's got some ideas of what does this Keter Shem Tov, what is this crown of a good name, and what does it look like? Oh, and we have a mic that we could even use.
I don't know.
That is, wow.
This is like a dream come true, Paul. Thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe you want, or you.
No, please. Yes, sure. Go ahead.
Well, I think somebody can get a good name from being a scholar or giving leadership or giving service. So if you do that well, you could also have a good name. But I think for most people, when you think of what gives you a good name in society, we were discussing here, it's what we would sometimes call being a mensch, service to other people, simpler things, rather than greatness. And
Great.
I think that is what.
So perhaps it's so perhaps we're this priesthood Torah Malchut. This is all up in the highfalutin territory over here, and good name is menschlichkeit. It's being good to the people around you. It's smaller things, and this Mishnah is sort of trying to give primacy to that. I like it. Let's get a couple more.
I'm not calling on him.
Oh yes, a doctor, please.
The idea of what it is to lead a good life. You know, how does one attempt to do it? And by leading a good life, it's how you relate with other people as well. So that not only by example, but also that the interaction between others.
So that's nice. There's something to that, which is that the learning and leadership to an extent, especially if it's a role, and priesthood are things that are about me. I can control, right? But the crown of a good name, being known well, is about other people's perception of you. And it's about a relationship that happens. It's about interactions that happen. It's less sort of all about the person. That's very nice. I like it. Yes, doctor.
A good name is something that has to be more consistent than any of the others. You can have knowledge in a certain area. You can have leadership in a certain area. You can have service in a certain area. But if you lose your good name, you're not going to get it back.
So going from sort of a specific to a general, right? The kahuna and Torah and malchut are specific things, and good name is sort of a broader category. That's very nice as well. Yes, and then wait, one more, and then we'll move on to the next text. But we're in no rush. We got all night.
I think that if you own the crown of Torah, you basically own the other one, because Torah is sanctification of every human behavior. So automatically you create a good name.
Okay. So this is actually a nice. Was there any others? Any other? What does it mean to have a good name? Right behind you. Yes, to pick a land or any lander, whichever one you. Go ahead, Rachel, please.
Giving me the microphone is a mistake. Yeah, I mean, I think the question is just what you value. That's what makes a good name. So it's subjective.
Oh.
So
subjective on the part of the person with the good name or everyone else?
Like what you think makes a good name is just what your value system is.
Interesting.
So the answer would be whatever that is for you.
That's
Thank
good.
you.
We can spend a lot of time on
That's
that.
my time.
That's nice. I like that. So I want to, this is nice. And I want to actually, let's move to the next text. Dr. Eisen, because you brought up this idea that, well, wait a minute, doesn't Torah encompass all of these things? So Maimonides, who writes, we'll skip over for a second. Well, let's do it. We're going to skip over the Vizot Bracha is an interesting text. We're going to skip it to Maimonides. So Maimonides, who writes a law code on everything, right? And he writes a book called Hilchot Deot, the laws of ideas, or the laws of, as the translator here puts it, human disposition. And he writes, even as the wise man is recognized by his wisdom and ideas, whereby he is distinguished from the rest of the public, so it is necessary for him to be distinguished in his conduct. And then Maimonides even continues and gives us some examples. Eating, drinking, sexual relations, elimination, speech, rendezvous, don't know what that means, dress, temperate in words, in business relations, all these deeds should be aesthetic and exceedingly cultured. So Maimonides pushes this a little bit further and says that actually, Torah will in some ways only get you so far. Ramban, a different Ramban, but Nachmanides writes that it is possible, as we all know, he writes, which means we all know, it is possible for someone to be scrupulous in their observance of mitzvot, of halakha, and still be not the nicest person in the world, right? This is Hebrew is called a naval birshuta Torah, right? That they're within the bounds of what's permitted, but they're still not such good people. And so Maimonides brings this to say that there is this extra thing that is asked of us, and he gives specifics, but my next question for you, which I think we're going to spend a few minutes on, is what would you choose if you were writing this list of beyond Torah, so beyond the scrupulous observance of the mitzvot, which of course we all do. Beyond that, what would we add to a list to say in order for someone to have this good name, right? In order for someone to be sort of known as a good person, we're going to maybe make things a little bit stricter about certain traits, certain behaviors, something like that. Does that make sense? Okay. To put it in the words of the Midrash that we skipped, right? So the Sifra on Vizot Bracha says that the Torah is like fire. How is it like fire? Just as those who work with fire are marked by their clothing and their gait, right? You can tell a firefighter by what they're wearing and how they act. I think of when I used to live up by the seminary, and you would go to the grocery store, and when the guys from the local firehouse would come into the deli counter, even if they weren't wearing their gear, you knew they were firefighters, right? Like you knew, there was no meat left by the time they got done with the deli counter. So the Midrash says, so too are those who spend their time dealing with Torah known by how they behave in the world, by how they walk, by how they dress. So how is it that you would want someone to be known as a good person, as a lover of Torah? What would that look like in our world today? You can take another 54 seconds. You can turn to the same person, or you can turn to a different one and learn someone else's news name. And we're going to talk, and then I want everyone to report back, what are some of the things that are perhaps beyond Torah itself that you would think make someone righteous, good, or you would want them to be known by? Ready, go. All right, take another 36 seconds. Okay, so I'm very excited to hear some answers on this one. And backbench over there, you guys know you're getting called on soon, right? Okay, yep, good, okay. Yeah, now everyone's looked at you, so we're gonna, quick, come up with something. Okay, all right, who's got some thoughts? I heard some good ones over here. So what would you add to Maimonides' list of sort of things extra to Torah that are important to sort of be a good person, be well? Gabe, let's start with you.
Yeah, we discussed general selflessness, really how all the things you want.
Selflessness? Okay. Interesting, nice. We, in our sort of modern, psychiatric, whatever, right, that world that we live in, we might sort of add this idea of where is the self in your world, and that might be a part of what makes someone sort of known as good name or not, or how they act, and by the way, because I can already see a couple, this isn't to say the Torah isn't good in this sense. It's just to say, what might we sort of want to add to sort of the Torah's way of asking us to live our lives? Very nice, very nice. Yes, sir. And then we'll go back. Kindness. Kindness is an important concept. That's true. That is not really on Rambam's list. Right. So you would want someone to be known, and we, the Cadre of Children, and I were talking about this earlier, right? That I agree with that one. I think that's something that when I'm thinking about like what makes a tzaddik, it's like these people who can just approach everyone around them with a certain amount of kindness. Very nice. Very, very nice. Let's jump to the back. We've got like three in the hands in the back, and then we'll keep going. Just go in order. Thank you, Doctor. Yes.
I think that the reading is such that Maimonides says that this person is held to a higher standard. And part of that higher standard should be to be tolerant and inclusive of all the people around him or her, to encourage them to emulate and also do this kind of, live this kind of life.
But by the way, that's Maimonides specifically does say, right, if someone is known as being a scholar of Torah, they are held to a higher standard. Why? Because, I mean, everyone, when we went on field trips when we were kids, and they would line you up and say, now remember, you're representing, Winger School, so when you go out into the world, you got to behave well. And so Maimonides, in this whole chapter, he enumerates all the different things, and he goes so far as to say that Torah scholars can't have stains on their clothes, right? They can't look too schlumpy, because then people are going to think, oh, someone who studies Torah all day long thinks that's okay, right? So very nice. There's a higher standard of inclusion of behavior. Very nice. Thank you. Yes?
Respectful of one another.
Is that different than kindness?
Yes.
Okay, great. Tell me how.
Okay. I think that one of the things that our society today has lost respect for one another. To be able to listen to one another, to hear one another, to accept different opinions from one another.
Gotcha.
I think that all of these things, you need to be able to respect. One human being needs to be able to respect another. The other aspect is, I think that everything comes from Torah. All of the lessons of life are in the rules of the Torah. How we interpret that is what's important.
Okay. All right. Two very good points about respecting others, which, again, to our point about the Keter Shem Tov, right, is more relational, right, than just how a human is on their own, which is interesting and important. Yes?
Okay. I think kind of everything fits in the box for me, because everything is someone's potential, and it's the potential to grow, potential to learn. So even if somebody is very evil or has done very evil things, if there is growth and change and they evolve, there's learning, that in itself makes them righteous. So I think we're all in God's image. We all have potential. We all can do that. So it's kind of going on that journey.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I actually hadn't thought about this as far as part of making it a little bit more amorphous means that it takes the person's journey into account, right? And so one person earning a Keter Shem Tov might look different than another person. I mean, obviously, this is obvious now that I've thought about it, right? Would look different than another person, and what it means to be a scholar and holy, it's going to be separate based on everyone's background, life experience, who they are. It's beautiful. Do you want to just finish up first? That was really great. Thank you. Sure. Were there more? There's tons more, and I love it. Let's keep running around here, MZ, and then we'll go to the good doctor. A lot of doctors, the actual doctors.
This isn't a fully formed thought, but I wonder if in distinguish there's something about like apartness and about holding, because we've always been such a small community, holding yourself to a high standard to represent Judaism and the Jews in a particular way.
Interesting. Okay, I like that. Meaning it's not just sort of, it goes with the field trip idea, right? But it's for all of us just by dint of the fact that we are such a small people in the world that whenever one of us does something, it reverberates to all of us. Because, right, that's a very nice point. And to the Torah, because that's sort of what we do. And I love it. Very nice. Yes, doctor.
So I'm going to add to the other doctor.
So adding to respect, but moving beyond just respect of other individuals, but respect of society. I like that. I'll take that. That's a sort of a way of being in the world, absent necessarily of specific laws of the Torah. I thought I saw Jonathan. All the way in the back.
Yeah, I was going to say how you play the game.
How you play the game. Oh, interesting. Right. This is I could talk about this for hours. How you play the game, right? So I played two. Here's your random story for the night. We couldn't get out with this. So I played two sports in high school and college. I played basketball and I played ultimate frisbee. No, right? Basketball. Which one was more important? Ultimate frisbee, clearly. Right? But basketball has referees. Ultimate frisbee is self-ref. That's right. And where do you think the behavior on the court or the field was better? Right? Who treated each other better? Basketball players or ultimate frisbee players? Ultimate, first of all, because of course ultimate frisbee players, but right, exactly, because if the person who you're jostling with is the one that's going to call the foul or be in the next play with you, right, you're going to be nicer to them. Whereas if you can triangulate with this third-party ref that you're like, as long as the ref doesn't see it, I can elbow you and it's okay, right? That it leads to different ways of playing the game. Well, nice point. I like that a lot. Okay, we're going to do one more. We're going to do one more. We're going to do a little bit more, but then that. But we're not going to read it all the way through. But there's a beautiful story in a play called Nathan the Wise that creates this parable of 3 rings. So this is the bottom of your sheet, and you can read it along. If you want to Google it, it's by, I don't know how to say the first name, Gertholt Ephraim Lessing. It's called Nathan the Wise. So he writes this parable, which is that there was a ring passed on from parent to child for generations. And the ring had, according to the story, the magical properties of making whoever wore it loved by all the people around them. And this ring was passed on from in the story, it's father to son. From father to son, not to the oldest, not to the smartest, but just to the dearest child of every father to son. And it's passed on and on and on until it comes to a point where a father has 3 children and can't choose between them. How could you? Can't choose between them which one is dearer. And so, says Nathan the Wise, he had 3 identical rings made and privately gave one to each of the children, pretending that was the real ring. And so no sooner had the father passed away than each son pulls out their ring and says, aha, I'm the one who has the real one. But then they realize what happened. They all have ones and they can't tell the difference and they don't know which one is real. So they go to a judge and the judge says, okay, just brothers, be real. Which one loves the other one more? Come on, who's got the real one? And they can't answer. They don't know. And he said, well, which one of you thinks your father really loved you the best? And they all thought so they don't know. And so the judge says, fine. If you want my advice, what you should do is live your life as if you have the real ring. And try to make yourself as loved as possible and do good for others and prove by your actions that you are the one that is wearing the real ring. And then maybe later, I don't know, some point someone will figure it out. But until then, we'll all be living our best lives. And I think that's a really important way that I have tried to live my life ever since reading that story. And I hope that all of us do, to just try to be as good as we can, whether it's whichever criteria we create, if it's kindness, if it's respect, if it's learning, if it's service to others, that we live our best lives and our best selves. And we build off of what we all do here as a community because we're known as being those who learn Torah and know Torah. And so with a little bit of your indulgence, I'm going to share a few more vignettes. These are not on your source sheet. A few vignettes of what it means to sort of bring Torah into the world as we talk through this idea. So there's a great story in the Talmud of Rabbi Hillel. We've heard of him? We've heard of his institutions, at least, on college campuses. He's a pretty special dude. So Rabbi Hillel is in the shower on Friday afternoon, getting ready for Shabbat, when two, I don't know what the Talmudic term is, but we'll go with nudniks, I don't know, they make a bet that they can make Hillel angry. So they wait till he's in the shower, they knock on the door, pull him out, and ask a ridiculous question. Right? Why is it that, I forget, it's off the top of my head, like why is it that the people from Ethiopia look a certain way or whatever? Like not a Torah question, nothing. And he pauses and he thinks and he answers the question and he says, is that all? And they say, fine, and they leave. He gets back in the shower. Next one, knocking on the door. He gets out, he comes, they ask another ridiculous, pointless, not Torah question. He answers with patience and kindness. Is that all? Yes, okay, fine. He goes, this happens half a dozen times till eventually they say, oh, Hillel, you cost me 400 zuz and we all thought we could make you angry. And Hillel says, better you should lose 4,000 zuz than you make Hillel angry. Because for Hillel, who was a scholar of Torah to be sure, Hillel was also this embodiment of patience, kindness, and thoughtfulness towards others. And in this, Aaron, you should start the timer of when I start crying. And nope, it's going to happen already. I should have practiced more. Because this is, of course, Rabbi Zuckerman. It's written out. I might just hand it to you. I don't know. Neil, you are someone who embodies patience, lack of judgment. You are the person that we all want to bring our tricky situations to. You have helped me through so much. You approach everything with patience and kindness and humor, and it is infectious. In meetings, in everything, you are able to take the temperature down. You are able to focus us on what's important. You have taught me how to broach hard subjects with others. You have showed me how to take care of my own health and exercise while still serving the Jewish people. Though, if you take advice, don't try to exercise with Rabbi Zuckerman. You won't make it through the exercise. You have helped me find priorities, and you have shown me what it means to be a master of calm and patience. So there's another story. The sages taught that there was an incident where Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was riding his donkey with one of his students, Elazar ben Arach, who said, teach me of the mystical nature of the chariot, the wonders. It's this esoteric sort of Kabbalah. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, of course, I'll teach you, but we have to get off of our horses first. And they sat down on the ground and they started to teach. And the rabbis tell us in the Talmud that as Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was teaching, that fire came and encircled the two of them. And that they were trapped in this circle of fire while they were teaching, and that all of the trees and the woods around them burst into song. And in this, it's a little easier because she's not here. I think of Cantor Rachel Brooke. Someone who, when you are in her presence, it is as if fire is encircling the two of you. That she brings presence to every moment and every interaction that she's in, and that at the end of it, you cannot help but burst into song. And the story is told of certain rabbis like Rava and Rav Yosef, that they were so mighty in their learning that other rabbis, when they would come into their presence, would tremble, literally shake before them. I'm not sure if I've actually shaken and trembled in the presence of Cantor Ozzie Schwartz, but probably, yeah. Especially when I call the wrong page or something, yeah. But you are someone who brings this incredible, once-in-a-generation talent to what you do. But it isn't only that, because actually the text that I think of when I think of you is Shir L'Adonai Shir Chadash, not only because it's like my favorite one that you sing, but because you try to bring newness and new things to all of the music that you do. You build off of an amazing tradition, but you make it your own, and you use new technology and new instrumentation and new things to try to sing a new song to God. And it has been an honor to be a part of that experience with you. And I want to thank you. You also care so deeply about the minutia of every moment. You think about the experience of those in the room. You help me be a better service leader. And I really appreciate that. And I'm sorry for every page number that I've called wrong. So, Rabbi Cosgrove, the first thing that comes to mind is not one text, but a person. And that we've already met him once tonight. And it's Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, Rambam, Maimonides. Now, Maimonides comes to mind because he was someone who moved effortlessly through the sea of Jewish and secular wisdom at one and the same time, quoting them interchangeably and eruditiously. He was someone who balanced the needs of communal leadership and Torah study. I feel sort of like being the doctor for the Sultan is kind of like being the rabbi for the Pope. But for me, the text that will forever be in my heart, I think, when I think of you, is in the Talmud. Reish Lakish says, Kol ha'osek b'Torah b'layla, HaKadosh Baruch Hu moshech alav chot shel chesed bayom. Whoever occupies himself with Torah at night, the Holy One, blessed be He, extends a thread of kindness over him by day. And I think this goes actually back to what we've been talking about all night. That someone who learns Torah, even when they're not engaged in that learning, you can't help but notice it on them, tied to them, just a little signifier that they are a learner of Torah. And Rabbi, you of course embody that. Someone who can walk into a mentor meeting or a fundraising meeting or have a walk in the park or a scotch, and Torah is still there and in your heart, and it shows. But also the idea of learning Torah at night, because I want to share, I think perhaps the most joy that I have as a rabbi of Park Avenue Synagogue is that Rabbi Cosgrove and I are on similar schedules when it comes to writing our sermons. Rabbi Zuckerman seems to be able to get it done during the day, and I applaud you for that. But especially in August, Rabbi Cosgrove and I are in our offices until 1, 2, 3 in the morning writing, and those have been, I think, some of the happiest moments that I've had in the last 8 years. Knowing that you're there, that if I ever need it, one of the smartest people I know is across the hall and I can get help with a sermon. Being honored to help you every once in a while when you shout out like, I need a Hasidic story about, being kind to people, or what's that story about the guys in the wagon at night? And I'm like, all of them. Yeah, exactly. But it has been a profound sense of honor to learn what it means to be a rabbi, an abba, a husband, a friend from you over the last 8 years, and I will proudly wear the Chot Shel Chesed tied around me for the rest of my life. And there's one final story. Reb Elazar, the son of Rabbi Akiva, was also a rabbi and a scholar, and he was learning, we're told, he was learning Torah one night when the candles went out. And he turned to his wife and he said, hi, yep, there it is again. I'm gonna look over here right now. And he says, Ha'irili, light me, or perhaps in Hebrew, enlighten me. And the two of them learned Torah together that evening. And Aaron, you taught me that text on our first Shavuot when we were dating. And it was on our benchers, and it is something that I think of, and I'm thankful for you. Oh, man. Excuse me 1 second. Every day. Thank you for enlightening me. Thank you for lighting my way. Thank you for raising our children and for helping me write basically every sermon that I've ever given. So thank you, and thank you. Without you, I would surely be in the dark. So, friends, the Me'or Einayim, who is a real Hasidic rabbi, not someone that I make up whenever I need a quote, which is what Rabbi Kozrov thinks it is. The Me'or Einayim writes that why do we say the 13 attributes when we open the ark? And we say this is, right, Adonai, Adonai, Rachum, V'chanun, Erech Apayim, right, God, you are long-suffering, you are patient, you are kind, all of the things about God. Why do we do this only when we have a minyan at our service? The Me'or Einayim says it's because no one person is all of those things. No one person can bring every good thing that we've thought of that makes someone have a Keter Shem Tov, that makes someone be known as good. But we have one. And when we all come together, this person is long-suffering, and that person is kind, and this person is respectful, and together we all make up the face of God. And so above all of the Gedolim that I want to thank all of you who have been a part of this community and a part of my life for the last 8 years. I want to thank all of the people that I have worked with. I want to thank all of the people who have, I'm worried to start naming people right now, but I do, Mira Davis, Cantor Davis, I want to thank you, Cantor Reisner, Josh Rosenberg, all of the people who have been a part of the clergy team with us. I want to thank you, everyone who has worked here, and we've been in some transition of staff, and so Rabbi Savinor, who I started with, but Rabbi Kaufman, Rabbi Solmson, the shul is in very good hands with you, and thank you. And I'm looking at people in the room who hired me, and I'm people who've been here, and so I want to, of course, thank Art and Paul. I want to thank Mark, and I want to thank Natalie. I want to thank Mark, and I want to thank Lizzie, and all of the leadership of this synagogue. Everyone who has learned with me. I see a lot of study circles here. Everyone who has been on a trip with me. Everyone who has eaten pizza with me. Hey guys, how's it going? Or had a drink with me. I'm not going to make you raise your hands. That'd be too many people. It has been just the honor of my life to be here. And so I want to finish with one last text. It's on the back of your source sheets. So we're told that the prophet Elijah was having a hard time with his mantle of leadership, which is true. For some of us, it can be hard. And he goes into a cave. Perhaps he needed some time. And it says, God came to him and says, why are you here, Elijah? And he replied, I'm moved by zeal for the Lord, the God of hosts, for Israel. For they have forsaken your covenant, torn down your altars, and put your prophets to the sword. I alone am left, and they are out to take my life. Come out, he called, and stand on the mountain of the Lord. And lo, the Lord passed by, and there was a great and mighty wind, splitting mountains and shattering rocks by the power of the Lord, but God was not in the wind. And after the wind was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, there was fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a soft murmuring sound. I do think that we have all had huge moments together, both personally. I've been honored to be a part of happy and sad times in our lives and huge moments in our community. But the small murmuring voice, right? The kiddush conversations, the meeting each other in the park and walking for a little bit, the checking in, that's where God lives, in the relationships that we all build. And then God comes back and says to Elijah, Elijah, why are you here? And he answered, I am moved by zeal for the Lord our God of hosts, for the Israelites have forsaken your covenant, torn down your altars, and have put your prophets to the sword. I alone am left, and they are out to take my life. So what does he say? Who notices? Who notices what's the difference between what he says in verse 10 and in verse 14. Before and after God showed himself. It's a bit of a trick question. They're exactly the same. He says exactly the same thing, and what's the next line? The Lord says, go back by the way you came on the wilderness to Damascus, and when you get there, anoint Hazael and pass on the mantle of leadership. Because Elijah in this moment fails. He fails because he saw God and it didn't change him at all. And that is the core of what it means to learn Torah and to be part of a community. It can be about kindness and respect. It can be about a good name. It can be about wisdom. But above all else, it has to be something that changes us. You cannot walk out of a service the same as you were when you walked in. You cannot leave a community the same as when you showed up. One must find a way to live our lives and to bring Torah and religion and community into our lives in a way that it changes us for the better. I have been so thrilled to have been changed for the better for all of you over the last 8 years. And I look forward to being changed further on. And we all, I hope, go into the next years and days and months and ahead being changed for the better because of our participation in this community and this people. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Chag Sameach.
Friends, when a great scholar of Torah concludes teaching, it's customary that we would rise for Kaddish D'Rabbanan. Please rise.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah bi'alma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon v'yomechon uvchaye dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevorach la'alam olamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yidaleh v'yithalal shmei dekudsha brichu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata tush bechata v'nechemata Damiran va'alma v'imru amen. Al Yisrael va'al Rabbanan va'al Tamidehon. Va'al kol Tamidehon. Va'al kol man da'askin ba'oraita. Di va'atra hadain v'di v'chol atar v'atar. Yehe lahon uchon shlama rabba. China v'chista v'rachamin. V'chayin arichin mizona revicha. Ufur kana min karam avahon divishmaya v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim tovim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav hu brachamav ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Amen. You may be seated. Erev Tov, good evening, everyone. So I'm glad we just said Kaddish D'Rabbanan now, because I don't know if what I'm about to say will qualify as Torah. Because for all the wisdom coming from the clergy offices, the truth is that we speak to each other in movie quotations. So how many people have seen The Matrix? Okay, not bad. So you'll understand what I'm about to say. everyone else can think about the cheesecake you'll eat soon enough. One of my favorite cinematic moments of all time takes place in the final minutes of the 1999 film The Matrix, starring Keanu Reeves. Throughout the movie, the film's hero, Keanu Reeves, Thomas Anderson, also known as Neo, struggles with all sorts of things. He struggles with coming to terms that his reality is not actually reality. He struggles with fighting a whole lot of bad guys who are out to get him and his friends, and most of all, he struggles whether or not he is indeed the one who will save humanity from a computer program known as the Matrix. In the final scene to which I'm referring, the chips are down. Neo has been felled by the bad guys, and all hope is seemingly lost. But then the revelatory moment happens, and the code within is unlocked. Neo's struggle is solved. The cascade of computer coding stands revealed, and our hero's destiny and full potential bursts forth, enabling him to see the fullness of reality, beat the bad guys, and stand at home in the fullness of who he is. I was reminded of this scene a few weeks ago when Rabbi Witkovsky was delivering a sermon from the pulpit of Park Avenue Synagogue. We lacked the soundtrack of The Matrix, the special effects, and the martial arts too, but the thrill I experienced was one and the same. I sat there watching you speak as you tried to weave together the Torah reading, your concerns about the environment, gun control, reproductive rights, other progressive causes, no small task. And having written out your text, you were sticking to the script, and in my mind, struggling with what you wanted to say and how you were going to say it. And then in the last few minutes, like that scene in The Matrix, you lifted your head up, you liberated yourself from the page, and to use the rare cultural reference that we don't share, you stopped aiming the ball and you just started throwing the ball. And it was beautiful. It was inspiring. It flowed. It was from your heart, and it touched all our hearts. It was a Matrix-worthy moment when your message and your Torah and your inner self became one. Humanity still needs saving, and there will be sequels, but those of us who were there and other moments like it, it was a moment worth remembering to be played back in our minds or on PAS Connect over and over again. To serve along Rabbi Witkovsky has been one of the most joyful, inspiring, fun, and curious honors of my career. Joyful, fun, and inspiring because as a friend and as a colleague, it has been a pleasure from day one to clock into the same institution as you. Curious because as your boss and as your mentor, you present a challenge that I have rarely, if ever, encountered. With great clarity, I remember the interview process, and I actually remember the competition for the job. And don't take this the wrong way, but there were some really, really good candidates that year. And some people on the committee leaned one way and some leaned the other way. And then someone who will remain nameless said something to the effect of, "Pick Witkovsky, because in picking Witkovsky, you are making a talent grab," meaning we may not have all the pieces aligned and you yourself may not have it all figured out, but to have Witkovsky on the team was to have an athlete on your team that would make the whole PAS team stronger. And so we grabbed you as that person, and that person's prophecy turned out to be entirely true. The challenge you present, Ethan, what makes you a curiosity, is that from day one, as I have voiced to you on many occasions, I've realized that my task has not been to mentor you into becoming a younger, more charismatic version of me, but to enable you to unlock the full potential of who you are. You are a generational talent, a rabbi with all the skills, pulpit, pastoral, interpersonal, intellectual, and otherwise, To see you in action is a sight to behold. And as with all great talents, I learned early on that the best thing I could often do is just step aside and let you be you. You are a colleague in every sense, and I have loved bearing witness to your vision as it has developed, to learning your Torah, and I am grateful to you for being my friend, my teacher, and my confidant every step of the way. I too will deeply miss our late night of writing together, our offices side by side, bouncing off ideas one to the other, the well-placed banter-filled breaks, and the constant referencing of Aaron Sorkin films. I hope that the passage of time will permit you to forget those times I have gotten under your skin, and I would hope that your natural powers of discernment will enable you to distinguish between those habits of mine that are worthy of emulation and those that should be shed immediately upon crossing the New York state line. I look forward to the day that you call me, as I once did my former boss, and say, wow, now that I am a senior rabbi, I finally appreciate what a great job it is being an assistant rabbi. And I vow to be your sounding board as you problem solve the challenges and opportunities of your new community, not as I would, but as you should. Most of all, Ethan, I hope you know that my greatest pleasure, jointly shared with Debbie, is a joy we take in seeing you and Aaron build a loving family with your beautiful children, Aldo and Sage. They are your rock, and I speak for all of us here today when I reflect on the bittersweet feeling of seeing your family move, knowing that our loss is Philadelphia's gain. And perhaps that is where the Torah of this moment is to be found, for you, Ethan, and for us all, that on this evening given over to the topic of revelation, the truths that we seek are not out there, but in here within us. Our task as Jewish educators is not so much to give people something they don't have or teach someone to be someone they are not, but rather to enable a person to uncover the Torah that lies within and reveal the divine spark that is theirs to claim. I hope, Ethan, that I have been part of the process of you uncovering your divine spark, and I hope that you see your charge as a rabbi to do exactly that for all those you serve into the decades ahead. So I will leave you with a final scene, a parting image, not because I have to, but because I want to. Specifically, Season 4, Episode 10 of The West Wing. Sam Seaborn, also known as Rob Lowe, has left the White House to run for Congress and has recommended to Toby Ziegler, Richard Schiff, a young speechwriter named Will Bailey, Josh Molina, to fill the now vacant position. Toby is unsure of the young man who, in his hitherto short career, has not yet functioned in the big leagues of the White House. Things seem shaky, and it's not clear whether the match will be made, at which point Will remembers that Sam had given him a small note to give to Toby, which Toby reads and we, the viewers, see as Toby does. And the note reads, Toby, he's one of us. Ethan, I have no memory of what Neil and I said to each other when we hired you, nor for that matter have I spoken to your distinguished predecessor in your community to be in Philadelphia. But the memory I've created in my mind, and what I would say to anyone about you in the future, is he's one of us. Though truth be told, I would modify it and say he is the best of us. Ethan, it's been a pleasure to work side by side with you these past 8 years. We are all stronger for your leadership, and we are all grateful, and I am personally grateful. I look forward to shephing nachas in your career, and most of all, I look forward to the years of friendship to come. It's my great pleasure to call on our chairman, Mark First, or chairman-elect, to share words on behalf of the congregation.
So it's been said many a time from this bima at Park Avenue Synagogue that you don't want to follow
Rabbi, how do you think I feel tonight following 3? So, 9 years ago, I received a call from Paul Corwin, president of this congregation, asking me to join a rabbi search committee. The objective was to add a rabbi to the team that could transform our teen and young adult programs. And teach and inspire our adults. And accept a full rotation of pulpit and life cycle rabbinic responsibilities and integrate seamlessly to the clergy team, be a good listener, provide wise counsel, and actually have a sense of humor. But that was it. Someone would need very large shoes to be able to handle all of those responsibilities, and amazingly so, we found someone, big feet and all, and a recent graduate of JTS at that. Now, the jury may still be out on the sense of humor, okay, but putting that aside, like the oil in the menorah that was only really supposed to last 2 years as the experience, it lasted for 8, and we are blessed. Rabbi Witkovsky, you have done it all, and your legacy at PAS will be felt for years to come. Our food pantry and teen community are thriving. Our young adults are excited and engaged, albeit most events include some form of alcohol. We do acknowledge that. You brought to life a study circle initiative, which was critical to connecting this community while we were out of the building during the construction project, but also through COVID and actually still to this day. To be fair, you didn't accomplish everything that you thought you might want to, okay? Like creating a leading, in fact, any synagogue ultimate Frisbee team, turning us into Badger fans, not happening, okay? And candidly teaching us how to properly pronounce your name, because we still actually don't know if it's Witkovsky or Witkowski, but maybe we'll learn one day. We've been blessed having you and Aaron as part of our PAS family, and I've loved watching your family grow and grow up. As a token of our appreciation from the entire community and a memory of your years at Park Avenue, we will present you with a beautiful silver Kiddush fountain to use at all of your Shabbat and holiday dinners. The inscription on it is from Pirkei Avot, and it reads, "Make for yourself a rabbi, acquire for yourself a friend." How apropos the words to summarize the vast impact you have had on this community. As a friend, you've invested in countless hours, coffees, scotches, conversations to build lasting friendships and relationships centered upon trust and respect. And you've worked hand in hand with lay leaders and your fellow clergy team to help this community move forward. And as a rabbi, you've challenged us, you've satisfied our quest for knowledge, you've inspired our intellectual curiosity, but even more so, you've taught us how to learn, to ask, to wonder, to challenge, and in many cases, to be teachers ourselves. And hopefully we've taught you something as well. I do want to end, though, where all this began 9 years ago at a lunch. You may remember this. During your interview process, it was a very small committee, search committee of 8 people, and you. And you were asked where you stood on a highly charged rabbinical policy issue. After what seemed like minutes of pondering, because I'm sure you didn't want to answer incorrectly, and an equal amount of squirming, you confidently said, "Well, I have an opinion, but it's not up to me. That is for the senior rabbi to decide." Rabbi Witkovsky, you're now that guy, okay? And hopefully you've learned a few things here that you can use when you go become a senior rabbi in Philadelphia. We're really excited for you, Aaron, Aldo, Sage, as you begin your next chapter at Beth Hillel in Philly, in the Philly suburbs. It's a community, it's a region that are very dear to mine and Rachel's hearts. And we know that you will thrive, teach, and propel the community there to new heights. This is not a goodbye, it's a celebration of our time together. So I will end by saying thank you for everything. Good luck in your next adventure, and we'll see you soon.
There is an outline. All you have to do is read it. So Ethan, one story is that after one of the installations of our new camera system in the sanctuary, I see Eric, who were part of the installation, come to me after service, and I saw something was off, and he says to me, Cantor, it's not going to work. I was like, what's wrong? What's happened? He says, Ethan is too tall. So Ethan, yes, you are too tall, and you've been too tall with your ideas and values and inspiring all of us. You've also been too tall in head in the clouds sometimes. But you've also been an amazing dreamer, and I hope you've seen that some of your dreams actually came true here at PAS. And we wish for you that you continue to dream, and we just hope that you will dream a little dream of us.
Stars shining bright above you, night breezes seem to whisper, we love you. Birds singing in the Philadelphia trees, dream a little dream of us. Say goodbye and we love you. We'll hold you tight and tell you we'll miss you. While we're alone and blue as can be, dream a little dream of us.
You're moving, but we linger on, dear, still craving your Torah. We're planning to linger till dawn, dear, just studying with you.
Sweet dreams till Philly finds you. Sweet dreams of your PAS friends you. But in your dreams, whatever they be, dream a little dream of us. Dream a little dream of us.
Cantor, should we make him call pages? No, he's still on the clock. All right. The Sidurim are in the seats in front of you. If there's not a Sidur for Mariv, then why don't you give your hand a raise, and we'll make sure. But we're making this very difficult because there are 3 different Sidurim. No. Okay, the red Lev Shalem, the red Lev Shalem.
Right. Which, if you're following along via the live stream, you can click on a link and download an electronic copy.